This original WSRE presentation is made possible by viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. Tonight on Connecting the Community, Pensacola is getting a mayor with some muscle. I'm Sandra Averhart, News Director for WUWF-FM, and I'm sitting in tonight for Lloyd Patterson. City voters adopted the mayor-council form of government, giving the new executive real authority to run the city and supervise all city departments. Whoever is elected will not be part of the city council as under the old system and will receive a benefits and salary package well over $100,000 per year over a 4-year term. Former Mayor John Fogg dropped out of the running recently, leaving these 4 candidates. Charles Baer is a former University of West Florida administrator who has also worked for Congressman Jeff Miller. Mr. Baer owns and operates a small technology business. It is his first attempt at public office. Ashton Hayward has worked in banking, telecommunications, financial media, and now co-owns a real estate investment business. A disclosure, Mr. Hayward serves on the WSRE TV Foundation Board of Directors, and this is also his first run for office. Diane Mack is a Pensacola City Council member at large seeking to move into the mayor's seat. She serves on the council's Finance Committee and was appointed to the Florida-Alabama Transportation Planning Organization. She is president of an advertising agency under her own name. Mike Wiggins is Pensacola's current mayor, elected 2 years ago after a long stint on the city council. He owns a lawn spray and landscaping business. And another disclosure, among other civic activities, Mike Wiggins serves on the foundation of Pensacola State College, formerly PJC. This station's license is held by the Pensacola State College Board of Trustees. The primary election is on the 24th of this month. There could be a runoff in November if no candidate gets more than 50% of the vote. Most of our questions come from the Pensacola Bay Area League of Women Voters. Also, we've asked our viewers to submit some questions as well, and we have asked the candidates to hold their responses to under 1 minute. Let's get started. First, Mr. Baer. What in your background will enhance your role as mayor of the city of Pensacola?
In my background, my educational background, I have a master's in public administration that I believe prepares me to be the mayor. It is the degree of choice for being a city manager, and the mayor is going to have to run the city on a day-to-day basis. I also believe that my experience with the University of West Florida as the Director of Governmental Relations, being liaison to state, local, and federal government, serving in Tallahassee as the lobbyist for the university, is also a great preparation for this job, as well as my federal experience and community experience, both on the UWF Board of Alumni Board of Directors, and currently I serve on Catholic Charities Board of Directors as well.
Very good. Mr. Hayward, that question to you.
Well, I have a degree in political science from the Florida State University, and I worked in corporate America for 10.5 years for 2 of the most reputable companies in America, the AT&T Corporation and the Financial Times. And in working for these companies, I was dealing with high-level accounts, major financial accounts, and I've started my own business when I moved back to Pensacola 7.5 years ago, being an entrepreneur, developing in the city of Pensacola and closing deals on a very high level. I also have sat on the Board of Adjustments for the city of Pensacola. I currently sit on the Planning Board for the city of Pensacola, the Architecture Review Board, and I was appointed by the governor to sit on the Northwest Florida Transportation Corridor Authority Board, and I also am proud to sit on this board at WSRE. I have the skill set. I've dealt with big accounts. I've dealt with many decision makers, and my strengths are consensus building and building relationships.
And Diane Mack, that question, what in your background will enhance your role as mayor of Pensacola?
Well, there are any number of things, but in the time we have allotted, let me talk about the several years that I have spent studying the city budget, and particularly because what got me into the whole political arena was the Pensacola Budget Study Group that I started back in 2007 in an effort to bring to the City Council citizens' dissatisfaction with the way the city was run. The other thing is that I have for many, many years had a small business, and I have a very complete understanding of what it takes to make a small business successful and what our small businesses in this city need from the City Council, from the city government.
Thank you. And finally, Mr. Wiggins, that question to you.
The keynote of my campaign is experience. The new mayor will have a $200 million budget and have to manage over 800 people. My background allows me to do that and hit the ground running on day one. I went to Pensacola schools. I graduated from PJC. I graduated from Florida State with a degree in finance. I went into the U.S. Navy. I was a lieutenant. I worked for NCR Corporation, which is a large technology company, then came back to Pensacola and joined the family business, which I participated in for well over 30 years. I've been on the City Council for over 12 terms, where I have chaired most of the major committees. And of course, this term, I've been the mayor. And I've been the mayor during some very challenging times. We started out with a brand new council. We had a mayor who had been here for 14 years. We had the recession. We had ad valorem reduction. We had the oil. So I have been the leader of the council over this last 2 years, and I believe that experiences will carry me forward into the new job.
Thank you. Our next question, and Mr. Hayward, it will go to you first. As the first strong mayor, what staff changes in the city government do you plan to make?
Well, first and foremost, I think the most important job that the new mayor will take on is the city administrator. And you want to make sure you have a qualified city administrator that's had his experience in governing, in politics, in working for a government. So that's going to be the number one thing. And the second thing is, we're going to have to look at the budget. We're going to have to incentivize our employees to look at their departments. How can they save money in each of their departments? Because right now we're all facing tough financial situations, especially municipalities around the country and around the world for that matter, that's trickled down to our local municipalities. So that's the first thing we're going to have to look at. And we're going to also have to look at the pension. And that's something that's everybody's facing around the country right now. So those are the top three things that you're going to have to jump on immediately as the new mayor. And economic development, most definitely.
All right, Diane, Mack, what staff changes in city government would you make?
As Mr. Hayward mentioned, the Chief Administrative Officer is going to be a key and crucial role for the mayor. It has to be someone who buys into the mayor's vision, is a credentialed professional, and helps the mayor implement the vision and the leadership plan for the community. And there will be a nationwide search for that particular position in my administration. But in addition, I will meet with all the department directors very early on, the very first week as mayor, and I will say to them, this is my vision, this is my leadership plan. I welcome your suggestions or recommendations, but you have 6 months to prove to me that you are on board 110% to make this plan happen.
Excellent. Mike Wiggins.
I'm very proud of the professionals that work for the city of Pensacola. The first thing I will do will get together one-on-one or in a group with every employee of the city of Pensacola, and I will do two things. One, I will ask them to share my vision for the city of Pensacola, which I hope before this evening is over we can articulate. Second, I'm going to ask them to embrace a philosophy that I think is critical, and that is customer service. I will want every member of my team to embrace customer service as it deals with our citizens. Our citizens deserve quick answers, they deserve courteous answers, they deserve accurate answers, and I will insist upon that. I will also appoint a new police chief, I will appoint a new fire chief, and of course the new city administrator will be one that I will do a search for to find someone with governmental experience, but also experience in an organization where he is people-oriented.
And finally, Mr. Baer, what staff changes do you plan to make?
Well, initially the first step would be the Chief Administrative Officer, and I'm looking for a person that's either got city management experience or someone that has commanded a base in the military, because I think there's some similarities there. Beyond that, what the city desperately needs an environmental advisor. We need to put someone back on the staff that can advise us. It's been very apparent that the city has not had someone to do that with the current crisis. We also have to look very carefully at how we can fund our the staffing for fire and police. Currently with fire, we don't have enough firemen to go on a fire truck to go into a fire. If there's an involved fire, a second truck has to come. So we have to look at staffing there. And of course, we've got over 800 employees. We're going to have to carefully look at that and see what type of makeup we need in each agency of the government to be able to effectively manage those areas.
Okay, thank you. Now to our third question, and Ms. Mack, it will go to you first. What is your position on consolidation of the city of Pensacola and Escambia County?
As I'm sure the public remembers, I was one of the council members who spoke against the consolidation plan and voted against the consolidation plan that was presented to the City Council last year by the Consolidation Committee. It was a very flawed plan. In philosophy, I believe consolidation is something we can look at, but what was missing, and I appreciate the hard work and the long hours that was put in by all the volunteers, but what was missing from that formula was a credentialed, professional, academic consultant to keep them from going astray in the directions that resulted in a flawed plan. So essentially, I am in favor of looking at the idea, but it has to be done far better than it was.
Mr. Wiggins.
Consolidation, obviously, we all know did not work. The last plan just wasn't satisfactory. However, I think moving forward, we need to look into functional consolidation where we consolidate different services that meet a particular test. One, does it work? Two, does it save us money? And three, what does it do to the level of service? Does it keep the same level of service for my citizens in the Pensacola area that they deserve? Now, we have some functional consolidation already. The library is a good example. The Chamber of Commerce, where the city and the county both put money into that particular effort. We have consolidated government that does work. As a new, strong mayor, I will look into areas where we can combine services, but it needs to pass that three-way test before I will accept it.
Mr. Baer, on the issue of consolidation between the city of Pensacola and the county, Escambia County.
Yes, I support consolidation efforts, and I really think with the last consolidation effort, there were some flaws in the plan. However, I support citizens' right to vote, so I would have voted to have a vote taken on that. It was not a full consolidation. The constitutional officers were not included. I think we need to look at a full consolidation. In the near term, I think functional consolidation can work, and again, it can't lower the level of service that we have within the city. I think consolidation is the only real way that we're going to be able to expand the borders of the city because of the fact that annexation is so difficult to achieve, especially since we don't have a really good story to tell people to get them to come into the city at this point.
And finally, Mr. Hayward.
I definitely think it's the voters' right to be able to vote on consolidation. As we stated earlier, right now we're using the chamber, right now we're using ECUA, the libraries. Things that we could look at right now concerning consolidation would be payroll, the GIS departments between the city and the county, maintenance between the vehicles between the city and the council, Escambia County. So those are things that we could look at right now and set out a plan to achieve consolidation. To see if it will work, to see if the long-term savings are a benefit to our taxpayers, because most importantly, it is the taxpayers that are paying the freight.
Okay. Our next question will go to Mr. Wiggins first. What specific budget cuts, if any, will you propose to make the city more financially healthy?
Budget cuts is a very difficult subject, of course. Over the years, we have cut the budget over $6 million in the last 4 to 5 years in our general fund. We're down over 50 employees just in my first term. So we have made some drastic cuts, but we have a balanced budget at this point. Moving forward, I am very concerned about tax revenues and sales tax revenues. And if they come in short, we're going to have to make some very difficult decisions. And we're going to have to make decisions like all the viewers at home are making tonight around their kitchen table. Do you buy this or do you buy that? It's going to be a matter of choices for the city, just like it is for a family in this particular economy. So I will examine the budget on a daily basis to see where we can conserve, but it's going to be some very difficult decisions because we are, quite frankly, at the stops right now.
Mr. Baer, on the issue of budget cuts, if any, you would make to make the city more financially healthy.
Okay. I was reviewing the list of employees today, just looking at places we might be able to cut, and the fact is the council has cut quite a bit already. And if we cut more in some departments, we're going to be cutting to the bone. Already we have issues in police and fire, which I think is the core of what we do as a city. We have to have good public safety. So that would not be an area I would cut. We'd have to look at other places. You know, I know everyone likes to have their street swept, but I'm sorry if it's a matter of whether you have a fire engine come to your house and is able to go in and fight the fire versus a street sweeper, we may need to cut something there. I think we need to look at some privatization options for things that we currently have in our economy that could be privatized and take the burden off city. City needs to be focusing on those things that only a city can do, which includes things like public safety.
Mr. Hayward.
Well, I think as we all know, sitting at the table and the viewers at home, all municipalities around the country are cutting their budgets. The first thing I'm going to do is, as I stated earlier in the show, is I want to incentivize the employees at City Hall to find ways to cut their departments and for all employees to take part in that and let them share in that cost-cutting savings. And we might need to look at going to a zero-based budgeting to be able to justify the expenditures going forward. That's critical in today's marketplace to make sure we're running efficiently for the taxpayers.
Okay. Our next question will go to Mr. Baer first this time. The city contributes $175,000 to the Chamber of Commerce annually to be used for economic development. Did I get to you, Ms. Mack?
No.
I did not. I'm sorry about that.
That's all right. That's okay.
All right. So back to the issue of budget cuts.
Yes.
Will you propose to make any, and what specific cuts would those be to make the city financially healthy?
Well, first of all, as I think you heard the mayor say, the great thing about the city of Pensacola is we are absolutely required to operate on a balanced budget. We cannot present a budget that shows more expenditures than revenues. And we do. For fiscal year 2011, we have a balanced budget, and that budget has been balanced by making cuts already. And of course, what we don't know is what may happen with ad valorem revenues because of the oil disaster. Specifically, when I am mayor, the first thing I will do is commission an operational audit of all departments, looking for efficiencies, looking for places where we can cut, looking also for places where we may be understaffed at a dangerously low level. And it will only be after we have the results of that audit that I will look at what we need to do.
Okay, thank you, and forgive me.
All
right, next, our next question, and again, it will go to you, Mr. Baer, first. The city contributes $175,000 to the Chamber of Commerce annually to be used for economic development. Should this process continue, or should economic development be a direct function of city government?
I've been pretty vocal about this one. I believe that that should end, that the $175,000 should not go directly to the chamber to do economic development. They've really not been held accountable in the past for what they did with those funds. I think if anything, they should have to apply for a grant if they're going to work on a specific aspect of economic development. But we need to create an economic development council, which would be more regionally focused, bring in the colleges, bring in the K through 12, and look at ways to first assess what we have here, what job skills we have here, and then match businesses, either grow them or bring them here. And I don't want Chamber not to be a part of economic development. I just don't think they need to be the lead agency.
Okay, Mr. Baer. I'm sorry, Mr. Hayward.
Well, I disagree with my opponent. I strongly feel that the city should be a part of the chamber right now. And the reason why is this. If you take economic development out of the chamber, we're then in the sunshine. And that causes a major conflict on how to achieve certain goals. And if you look at it, Team Santa Rosa is having a challenging time right now. So I feel like with the addition of Jim Heiser, who's coming in as our CEO, we will, together with the city and the chamber, have a united front on regional, national, and international growth for the city of Pensacola. There are businesses out there, and we have to go and attract those businesses. So I'm all for the chamber being a part of economic development and working directly with the mayor's office.
Ms. Mack, do you think economic development should be a direct function of the city?
I do not. Economic development must be in private hands as a lead agency with the city, with the mayor particularly, participating in a very aggressive manner. And for the reasons that you've already heard, because we do need to deal with companies who need their privacy maintained out of the sunshine in a private manner. That's what they expect. As to the city's contribution to the chamber, when a presentation was made to the city council, actually to the joint meeting of the city and the county last year, there was some talk by the chamber that they want to get away from depending so much on city funds and raise more private dollars. And I would certainly urge them to do that so that the city could fund its auxiliary economic development efforts in cooperation with the chamber.
All right, and Mr. Wiggins, that question to you.
I embrace the Chamber of Commerce model for economic development. Jim Heiser, the new president of the chamber, comes from Bowling Green. He had the #1 chamber in the country and raised over 4,000 jobs. And I've sat down with Jim, and he and I share the same vision of going out to recruit companies to come to Pensacola, the same vision of nourishing the companies we have in Pensacola already, which contribute 80% of the jobs. And this would not be new to me. I have traveled to recruit businesses. I've been in the boardroom of Southwest Airlines in Dallas. We're trying to recruit them to come to Pensacola, and I think we've made some headway with that. But I do believe it's a wise investment for the city of Pensacola and Escambia County to pool their money in the chamber with a professional like Jim Heiser, and then all work together to make economic development and job creation happen.
Thank you. Our next question, candidates, is in terms of your goals. What are your goals for the city in the next few years? And Mr. Hayward, you're first.
Well, most importantly, I think we need to restore trust at City Hall. I think there's a big disconnect right now with City Hall and the citizens of Pensacola. We're all facing challenges right now in the workplace, at home, in the business world. And we need to make it more transparent to the citizens. We need to have line item budgets for them to readily see. We need to create a web portal that is information is there on a 24/7 basis. We need to allow the citizens to know exactly what we're doing with their money. And that is critical, and that's what I've heard when I've been knocking on doors and campaigning. And we need to create jobs. We need to work together as a region to go after the jobs that are going to prop up the city of Pensacola. As we stated earlier, 80% of the jobs will come from our private entrepreneurs here in the city of Pensacola, and we need to work directly with our new CEO, Jim Heiser, to do that. And I think it is doable. We're going to have to become a talent magnet for the city of Pensacola to be successful. And we need to improve our neighborhoods. We have $1 million in our tree fund, and we need to apply that to beautification to make this a place that's desirable to work and live.
All right, thank you. Ms. Mack, that question to you. Your goals for the city in the next few years.
When I announced my candidacy in January of this year, I did so by putting out there in public 3 very certain goals. And what I said was that if I'm elected mayor, in the first term of 4 years, I intend to do my best to increase the population of the city of Pensacola from the present a little under 55,000 to at least 60,000, to decrease unemployment from over 10% to 7%, and to increase average per capita income in this community by 5%. And that if I did not achieve those goals, I would not seek a second term. And I have developed an initial leadership plan to get us there.
Excellent. Mr. Wiggins, your goals.
My goals revolve around jobs and economic development. As I said a second ago, we have got to recruit business and we have to nourish our existing business. But there's a third leg to that stool. One is to make our community the best it can be so businesses want to come here to do business. And very quickly, let's name some. Let's get the Maritime Park going. Let's go with it. I noticed today there's bare dirt out there, which is good news. There are bulldozers on the site. Let's get our air service first class. Let's get more nonstops. Let's get Southwest Airlines in here. Let's build a tech park over on 9th Avenue to get young companies in here, high-tech companies that can move our city forward and hire the citizens here in Pensacola. Our citizens want arts and culture. We have to fund that. Our citizens want great libraries like the new library on the Tryon branch over on Langley and the new downtown branch, which is going to be built on Gregory right where it needs to be built. So if you're going to have jobs and economic development, you need a community that has all the amenities that are good not only for new business but also for our residences also.
All Thank you. And finally, Mr. Bear, on your goals for the city.
Okay, as I've walked all over the city, I have found lots of suffering, different places, and lots of people that need work, and they need more than a minimum wage job. And what has been happening over the past few years is we've created lots of minimum wage jobs, we've had call centers, but we just don't have the kind of high quality jobs, living wage jobs that we need. So that has to be first and foremost my primary focus, is creating an economic development council that would bring together, look at what our colleges are turning out as far as students, look at our job skills that we currently have in our marketplace, and seek out grants for retraining people, grants for different initiatives that we can do from federal and state resources so that we can start getting people back to work. We really have to focus on that first and foremost. And we do have to consider some of the budget impacts we're going to have from some of these big projects like the Maritime Park. It's going to have a significant impact on our budget.
Thank you, Mr. Bear, and thank you, candidates. We've just about reached our halfway point, and we will take a little break. We are talking to our candidates for Mayor of the City of Pensacola, and this is Connecting the Community.
Who are you going to vote for on August 24th in the primary election? Watch Rally 2010 on WSRE for an in-depth look at the candidates in Escambia, Santa Rosa, and Okaloosa counties. Learn where they stand on the issues that affect you and share your opinions with other WSRE viewers online at WSRE.org. Watch, decide, vote. Rally 2010. Monday through Wednesday at 7, only on WSRE.
Welcome back to Connecting the Community on WSRE TV. We are talking with our candidates for Mayor of Pensacola, and this will be the first election of a strong mayor for the city. We were giving each candidate about a minute to answer the questions, and I think we are up to our 7th question, and we will start that one with you, Ms. Mack. How do you propose to deal with the city's very costly pension plan?
The solution to the city's pension liability is going to be a long-term fix, primarily because we have 3 pensions. We have a fire pension fund, a police pension, and a general employees pension. And the fire and police are tied up and always a component of collective bargaining, because collective bargaining is what we do with the unions. The general pension fund is actually closed, and any new city employees go into Florida retirement system. We are hoping over time that the police, and there is some sentiment for the new hires in the police department to go into the Florida retirement system. We don't have that in the fire department, and my time is up.
All right. Mr. Wiggins, that question to you on what you would do to deal with the city's costly pension
To say the
plan.
least, Sandra, this is a very thorny issue. A lot of the problems go back for years, if not decades, and we're having to live with that right now. We do deal with unions, and of course that poses a whole new dynamic insofar as handling the pensions. There is one example I'd like to bring out. One is we have tried, and we've done in the general pension to move employees into the federal, into the FRS. But in fire, we can't do that because of some state rules. So what we need to do is talk to our state legislators to see if that rule cannot be adjusted. But also at the same time, we need to do some very, very intense negotiations with the unions insofar as working together to solve this pension problem. Everybody admits it's a problem. There's cities all over Florida that are facing the same thing we are. I just think this is going to be one of those things we're going to have to, one, work with the legislature, but also work internally among ourselves to solve this problem.
All right, thank you. Mr. Baer.
Okay. Well, this issue is something that's plaguing lots of cities. Jacksonville's, I think, is over $1 billion now, so we are not alone. And just because you're consolidated doesn't mean that you don't deal with issues like this. We have to work diligently to get our employees into the FRS, and as mayor, I will work with the bargaining unit of the police and fire to move in that direction. I think we have to demonstrate why it's effective. I mean, there are cities that are cutting salaries, there are cities that are cutting people, and we don't want to lose people in fire and police, so we've got to find ways to bargain so we can save some money. And some of this is beyond our control because of where the pension funds were invested. And so some of that will, as the market comes back, we will see a little bit of an increase in, well, a decrease in what our liability is.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Hayward, that question to you.
This is most definitely a huge issue around the globe for that matter. We've seen what's been going on over in Portugal and Ireland and Greece and Spain. It's trickled down to the United States. There's municipalities around the country going bankrupt to save their pensions. I feel this is the 800-pound gorilla facing all of us in our city. We need to tackle it. As your candidate and as your mayor, I've been looking into this. I've got a team of financial and accounting people looking into this. And this, as I stated earlier in the show, will be one of the top 2 things that we do under my administration. We need to look at the actuaries to see if there's a contract and how long that extends out. We need to look at every different option to tackle this issue, because this is a major issue, because a lot of our citizens, they count on the expert services of the fire and police, and we don't want to ever have to cut that.
All right, thank you. Our next question is about the Port of Pensacola. It will go to Mr. Wiggins first. What do you foresee as the most economically feasible use of the Port of Pensacola?
Well, I have been a big fan of uses of the port that are clean maritime uses. We have a new contract with a company called Offshore Inland, which brings ships in that are repaired. And we know it's been an economic stimulus because our businesses tell us so. People like Pensacola Hardware, like the restaurants on Palafox, are being patronized by the people who run that particular operation. It's been a great company. We ship chickens to Russia, and the rules have been relaxed, so that business is now going to prosper. I am a big supporter of those businesses, but also there's a portion of the port, it's about 10% on the northern edge, that the City Council has said we can use for multi-use. That can be entertainment venues, that can be restaurants, it can be hotels. That is something we need to pursue, but in my opinion, because of the Community Maritime Park, which we are now just developing, we may need to hold off on that particular multi-use development until the Community Maritime Park is on its way.
All right, Mr. Baer, what do you foresee as the most economically feasible use for the Port of Pensacola?
Okay, the first thing I would do is appoint a citizen committee that includes representatives from the maritime industry to look at the best uses for our current port. We are locked into a long-term lease with Mack that goes to about 2022, and we can't just get out of that. It's going to cost us a lot of money to get out of that. I don't support putting a multi-use or mixed-use facade on the front of the port. I think there's a constant, I guess, conflict between the business and the industrial community. I think for the foreseeable future, we need to look at more opportunities like the chicken that goes out of there, because those jobs that are generated from there are very good paying jobs. I mean, $12 minimum and go up from there. So we need to look at ways to expand and have a little bit more cargo operation down there in the near term, and in the future, I think we need to look at alternative locations for the port, whether that be somewhere else down the coastline or at the Naval Air Station.
All right, Mr. Hayward.
Well, first of all, we have great companies down there. We have Pate Stevedore down there. We have Martin Marietta. We have Halcourt. We have Offshore Inland. And we need to figure out what is going to make that port the biggest rate of return for our citizens. There's great jobs down there. There's people in the city of Pensacola that depends on those jobs. We need to figure out how to market that port in a better way in the 21st century. I don't think that they're fully funded to be able to market it correctly in today's times. We definitely need to focus on the Maritime Park and historical Pensacola and make sure that the port has the right tools to be successful. It can be a niche port, and we need to reach out to businesses around the country and around the world for that matter to help it grow. And I've put a community advisory committee together to look at this in depth. So I think that this port can be successful with the right vision.
And finally, Ms. Mack, that question to you. What do you foresee as the most economically feasible use of the port?
The most exciting thing that we are looking at for the Port of Pensacola is equipment and to make it able to accept small container cargo. And that is tied with the city looking at, with the county, using the Escambia Superfund treatment site, which has now been remediated, as an inland port. And an inland port is simply a place where you store cargo. And the difficulty with the Port of Pensacola is that we have only 40 usable acres, so that you can only store so much. Large ports like Mobile and Panama City are going to be concentrating on large container ships, and so they will not want to deal with the smaller containers. That is a market we can go after because we have fabulous customer service, and we just need to get the grants for the equipment to allow us to have an inland port.
All right, our next question will go to Mr. Baer first. What is your opinion of the proposal to construct an aquarium on a portion of the Main Street sewage treatment plant? How should the property be used?
I sat through a presentation about that particular project, and I find it very intriguing. The big obstacle is money, and the other obstacle is the fact that the city doesn't own that property. It's ECUA's property. I think the best use of that property would be a private entity purchasing that, not the city. The city is not a good landlord. I think we need to have that privately developed. If it's an aquarium, I think it's a much better fit to have an aquarium on the coastline that is a ballpark. You know, if there was some way to swap the funds, which there's not, that would be an outstanding idea. I mean, the impact, the environmental impact, the impact of having the university to research there, even having certain fishes that were bred there and could be put back in the local population. I think there's some incredible opportunities there that we really need to consider.
Mr. Hayward, on the proposed use of that Main Street sewage treatment plant as an aquarium, what are your thoughts there?
Well, this is a critical piece of property for the city of Pensacola. It's 18 acres, and the most important thing to do with a piece of property like that and develop it correctly is to do an RFP. And we need to do a real RFP and make it available to anyone that wants to bid on it. We need to get that property on the tax rolls for the citizens of Pensacola. That's the most important thing. We don't need to be in the business of developing property. The aquarium, it's a great idea, but we need to look at all ideas and put them on the table, and that's what an RFP will do. And we need to maximize the rate of return, as I've said earlier tonight, to the taxpayers.
Ms. Mack, your opinion on this proposal to construct an aquarium at that Main Street sewage treatment site, and further, how should the property be used in your opinion?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the creative thought and the excitement of those who have come forward with this proposal. And certainly if they could pull it off, it would be a fabulous draw to downtown. But that's a big if. And you know, this is all theoretical because it's not a project the city would be involved in. It is property that belongs to ECUA. They will have total control of how they dispose of it. The money for any aquarium, not just the capital investment, but it's expensive on an annual basis to operate an aquarium. If private people can pull it off, it would be fabulous. But in this economy, I don't see that happening, and I know ECUA is not going to wait until the economy improves and this group secures the money before they put it on the market.
Mr. Wiggins?
This is the ECUA's property. However, Mr. Bill Young has come to me to show me his vision for the aquarium, and I really appreciate his creativity. It's an exciting plan. Whether it's for us or not remains to be seen, because there was no funding attached to it, and that is critical. But Sandra, what I want to say about that particular piece of property is how important it is. It's right across the street from the Community Maritime Park. It's right across the street from Bruce Beach. It's right south of Belmont and DeVillers. This is going to be a piece of property that is going to be critical in the development of downtown Pensacola. So even though if the ECUA owns it, which they do, I look forward to us as a city, our community development folks, working with the ECUA. Hopefully they will work with us where we can determine what is the best use for that property.
All right, thank you. Our next question will go to Mr. Hayward first. How do you propose to bring high-paying jobs to the city?
Well, this is a discussion that's always on the street, always within the community, and definitely one of the most important conversations I've had knocking on doors as a candidate. And the reality is this: if the city of Pensacola does not become a talent magnet, we will not be successful in growing our city the way we want to grow our city. Cities across the nation right now are competing just like we are. We have to have a vibrant downtown. We have to have an attractive city. And in doing that, that means bike lanes, that means pedestrian-friendly downtown, that means public art, that means access to the waterfront, that means great recreation. Great people that want to work, they look for these things like this in their city. And that's the key to economic development, is having a desired place to live and work and make it easy to do business in the city of Pensacola. Those are the most important thing, is building the right relationships for those companies to come here and have an education downtown as well.
Ms. Mack, how do you propose to bring high-paying jobs to the city?
One of the important things, and we heard this from the new executive director, executive president of the Pensacola Area Chamber, we as a community, and that's the city, the county, Santa Rosa County, not only need to get together regionally and help each other, but we have to increase our inventory of shovel-ready sites. And as far as the city is concerned, our most easily developable site is the Airport Commerce Park adjacent to the airport. It is a highly desirable location, particularly for high-tech companies. Site selection professionals tell us that. And in fact, great excitement. Just a week and a half ago, I met with a private concern that is truly interested if we could fast-track that, and it would be a absolutely fabulous, fabulous facility for Pensacola.
Thank you. And Mr. Wiggins?
There's some things the city can do. There's a book called The Rise of the Creative Class, written by a fellow by the name of Richard Florida, that says much of the young talent, high-paying talent that could come to Pensacola can live anywhere in the world that they want. So you have to have a city where they want to come. And here's some things they want. They want waterfront access. That's exactly what we're doing. It's Community Maritime Park and Plaza de Luna. They want things like recycling. And we have instituted that at my insistence at the beginning of my term. We now have recycling that includes glass. They want libraries. They want a vibrant downtown that has entertainment venues and restaurants where they can go for themselves and with their families. They want to know that they are protected. They need to have a first-class fire department, a first-class police department that will protect them. So we as a city can make all those things happen, and we are doing that, and will continue while I'm the strong mayor.
Finally, Mr. Baer, on what you would propose to do to bring in high-paying jobs to the city.
Okay. We need to stop focusing our economic development efforts on tourism. We need to look at a broader economic spectrum of businesses. I think really we need to look regionally. We don't have an income tax in the state of Florida, so it makes it desirable for people to live here. So we need to work regionally, not just with our counties here, but just over the border in Alabama. We're pretty close. If we can get a business that locates over there, we would have employees over here spending money. And so I think we need to look beyond just the city limits, obviously. We don't have a lot of shovel-ready sites here. I know there are cities and counties across our state that are giving incentives, large incentives, to places that are even located here that have branches down in, say, Ocala, that are able to give big incentives. We need to look at doing that, more tax incentives from the city and county. We need to look at, we need to get to Tallahassee and lobby, especially right now with the oil spill. There are going to be opportunities, I believe, for additional dollars from the state, and you need someone who's able to do that and understands that system.
Thank you. Our next question will go to Ms. Mack first. What is the rationale for the city, the county, and ECUA each having a garbage transfer station, while at the same time all commercial garbage is handled at a single facility?
That is an operational technical question that I truly cannot answer. I do not know. I'm sorry. So let me address instead the transfer station business. Let me address instead why the city operates its sanitation department, which I know ECUA covets. But we do not want to turn it over to ECUA because we have a philosophy within the city of Pensacola that we want this community as clean as possible, and so we provide a level of sanitation service to our citizens that is not provided by any other operator in this community. In terms of frequency, in terms of yard trash pickup, in terms of response to debris after hurricanes. So we have a particular need, and we provide a superb municipal service with our sanitation.
Mr. Wiggins, the rationale.
Let me explain the transfer situation to you. There are two transfer stations. The first one is run by Allied, and we in the city take our garbage to that transfer station. We do that because Allied can take it to the landfill cheaper than we can ourselves. So that's why we have that transfer station. On the other side, we have the city transfer station where our yard waste goes, which begs the question, why don't we just take the yard waste to the Allied? Well, they won't take yard waste. So we have to have a transfer station for that yard waste. And also, as an aside, we take our recyclables to our own transfer station to keep them separate so we can get those to the landfill.
All right, thank you. Mr. Baer.
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes, I certainly will. What is the rationale for the city, the county, and ECUA each having a garbage transfer station, while at the same time, all commercial garbage is handled at a single facility?
And I think I'm with Ms. Mack on this, that this is a technical question beyond my, my ability to answer at this point. I would say that I believe sanitation is a perfect example of things that we could consolidate. You know, we've got an agency, the ECUA, that does sanitation. We, you know, we have our own sanitation. I think we could set some standards. Again, it would be one of those things where we don't let it diminish our level of service. We would have to have certain aspects of it that we would maintain. But I think this is clearly an area where we need to look at consolidation.
Mr. Hayward.
Well, I think this is definitely politics playing its hand, obviously. The reality is there's probably a cost benefit to it, and we obviously have the best sanitation in the city of Pensacola, and that's probably why we're doing it.
All right, let's go to the issue of your staffing. Will you ensure the voters of Pensacola that your staff will be the best qualified for those positions and not just campaign contributors, family, or friends? And I think this question goes to Mr. Wiggins first.
Without question, I can guarantee that. With my experience in the military and with large companies and with my own company, I know the type of employee and the type of staffer I want. And like I said earlier, I need people on my staff that share my vision for the city, that want to provide legendary customer service to the citizens of Pensacola. Now, in the city of Pensacola right now, we have got some folks who are consummate professionals. I'm very proud of them, and I look forward to working with them in my new administration. But they will need, of course, to pass that test that in order to work on my particular staff insofar as sharing the things I want to do with this city as we move forward into the future.
Thank you, Mr. Baer.
Okay, at the department head level, I would say I would treat it as a cabinet, and those folks would be, I just released a City Residents Bill of Rights that would dictate how we deal with citizens, and that means citizens come first, and they must have an easy way to access information, whether it be through the web or not having to call multiple phone numbers. That's first and foremost what my employees would need to focus on. As far as the cabinet level, the department heads, whether it be fire, police, the airport, they also have to be able to motivate their employees, and they would have some budget discretion. A lot of them don't have that right now. I think that they need to have some ability to lead in their various agencies, and I don't have anyone at this point that is contributing that I would consider for a position.
Mr. Hayward, on that issue?
Well, most definitely. You want the employees that are going to share your vision and are qualified to lead the city of Pensacola. The city of Pensacola is for everyone. It's not just for a select few. And this is the people city, and we need to deliver the best and the brightest to the citizens of Pensacola. They deserve it, they work hard, and now more than ever is the time to have the right team in place to send this city into the 21st century with a great vision to achieve everything for the citizens of Pensacola. And I can promise you, we will have the best and the brightest working at City Hall to serve the citizens of Pensacola.
And Ms. Mack, on ensuring that your staff will be the best qualified and not just family and friends.
There is absolutely no question that the people who will serve me as mayor will be credentialed, consummate professionals, Absolutely not any cronies, none of that has too often gone on in this community, and unfortunately I think more in the county than in the city. I would want the best professionals, the people dedicated, of course, to the vision that I would set out, but if they are professionals, that's exactly what they would do. And the citizens of this city, I think, have seen the honesty, integrity, and character that I have shown in my year and a half as a city councilwoman to know that what I say here and what is going to be recorded for posterity is exactly the truth.
Time for just one more question. I wanted to move to the issue of annexation. Do you see additional annexation and changes to Pensacola city limits, Mr. Baer?
Okay, annexation is a very difficult issue because you have to convince county residents, if you're annexing residential areas, you have to convince county residents that what we have here is better than what they currently get in the county. And that's very difficult. If they don't call the police, they don't call the fire department ever, they don't know, what a good police versus fire. We have the best, but a lot of people don't utilize those services. We have parks. Parks are great, but everyone can use those. So we have to do something that gives them a reason to want to come. And I think that's where serving citizens better than our counterparts in the county comes into play, that we need to do better, serve them better, have citizen advocates so that they don't have to chase issues around our city, and that is the way we're going to be able to annex those areas. Commercial areas are a little bit easier, and there are areas where we can look to annex where we could put in some type of commerce park or commercial facilities.
Okay, Mr. Hayward.
Well, most definitely you have to convince them to move into your city. But with my vision, we will make the city of Pensacola the best place to live and work. And those people will want to come into our city. That's the most important thing. And right now, in today's time, we've got to give benefits to these folks that want to come and live and work and play in the city of Pensacola. So for me, it will be creating the right city for those people to move into our city. Annexation is definitely a tough one. And again, if you have the best city, they will come, and that will benefit everybody.
Ms. Mack, on the issue of annexation.
Because of the goal that I set for increasing the population of the city to 60,000 in 4 years, annexation is an absolute essential of my leadership plan. And I like to be optimistic that we will find a way to convince those communities, those neighborhoods that we would like to annex into the city, that there are benefits. And I happen to know that the much esteemed mayor of the city of Charleston, South Carolina, Joe Riley, was very successful with annexation, and I plan to consult him and see what creative ways he used with that salesmanship in his city.
And Mr. Wiggins.
Florida law makes annexation very difficult because the newcomers to the city have to vote to come into the city, and the city residents have to vote for them to come in. So what you've got to do, in my opinion, is concentrate on 3 areas: police, fire, and sanitation. These are 3 areas where we shine. We have the greatest response time with our police and fire. Our sanitation department is on time, great customer service. We have annexation that is just wonderful. So if we can do that, then here comes the strong mayor. He needs to step forward and be the salesman to go out to convince these county residents that, look, we have got these great services, come into the city and your life will improve and your family's life will improve. I think I can do that, and I look forward to it.
Thank you very much. We've come now to the portion of our program where our candidates are given 1 minute for closing statements, and we will go in reverse order and start with you, Mr. Wiggins.
Well, Sandra, thank you very much for this forum tonight. It's been terrific. I've enjoyed it. As I said at the very beginning, and I want to say it at the end, when you go into that voting booth, or if you vote early voting, or if you have an absentee ballot, please think Mike Wiggins and think experience. Experience. I have experience in business, I have experience in government, I have experience in the military, and I am ready to step forward day one to be the strong mayor. Keep in mind, next January, the current city manager is going to hand the key to City Hall. He's going to hand it to the new strong mayor and say, okay, it's all yours. You better be ready, you better have the knowledge, you better have the enthusiasm, you better have the integrity, you better be ready to go, because our future is at stake here. and it's just going to take experience in order to make this work, and I feel like I'm that person.
Thank you. Ms. Mack.
Thank you very much. This has been a wonderful forum, and I do appreciate the efforts of WSRE TV, our fine public TV station. This historic election is about jobs, it's about economic development, but even more, it is about the neighborhoods that create the quality of life that are the lifeblood of this city. And I have demonstrated over the last year and a half that I am a true champion of those neighborhoods over special interests, over harmful development, and as mayor, I will continue that. But also I have been a champion of the forgotten in this community, of the neighborhoods that don't get their share of city funds, and I pledge to this city that everyone will share equally, and that the culture of this city under my administration will embrace every individual and every business.
Thank you. Mr. Hayward.
I want to thank the citizens of Pensacola tonight that are watching at home. Now more than ever, the city of Pensacola can be a game changer. I have the skill set, I have the leadership to do this for the citizens of Pensacola. We've been talking about the same problems for the last 20 years. Now more than ever is time for us to restore trust, create jobs, improve our neighborhoods, and take action. I've been successful on the corporate level, and I've been successful as an entrepreneur. I've given back to our community, and I'm ready to give back to you, the citizens of Pensacola, and lead us into the 21st century to make our city successful. It can be done, and we can do it, and I look forward to your support and your vote on August 24th. Thank you.
Mr. Baer, the last word to you.
Okay. The citizens of Pensacola are getting ready to make a historic change in our system of government here. If you're looking for empty campaign promises or economic expectations that can't be made, or a candidate that's not able to think for themselves, then you don't need to vote for me. What you need is to vote for me if you want someone who strives for greater efficiency in government, who's led people in the U.S. and abroad, and has educational qualifications to manage a city. Let's face it, I've walked to thousands of homes across the city and seen lots of suffering, and I've looked at every end of our economic spectrum. It's critical now that we do things in our city that can advance us. We are not advancing right now. We must broaden our focus in economic development, bring in the colleges, the K through 12. We must realize the errors of our past and the impact of the massive maritime park debt that we're about to have. I'm prepared to lead our city into a journey that will embrace our history and use our collective talents to bring progress to Pensacola. I look forward to serving you over the next 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you very much, candidates. You've been watching Connecting the Community on WSRE TV, and we have been talking with our mayoral candidates for the city of Pensacola. We invite you to tune in next week when we begin our Rally 2010 program, starting on Monday. Thank you again watching Connecting the Community on WSRE. I'm Sandra Averhart. Good night.